On January 20, 2025, a relatively unknown AI lab based in Hangzhou, China, uploaded a new model called R1 to the public internet. Within 72 hours, NVIDIA's stock plummeted nearly 20%. That single drop erased close to $600 billion in shareholder wealth, the largest single-day destruction of market value in U.S. financial history. The app powered by R1 briefly overtook ChatGPT as the most downloaded free application in the Apple App Store. Inside the halls of OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic, executives were scrambling to respond. The company behind the release was DeepSeek, and their model shattered a core belief held by Western policymakers that a company operating under severe U.S. export sanctions could not possibly build a frontier-level artificial intelligence. For years, the U.S. strategy relied on cutting China off from the advanced processing hardware required to train AI, specifically restricting the sale of top-tier NVIDIA chips. By 2025, the global computing divide was stark. The United States controlled roughly 75% of the world's AI compute capacity. China held roughly 15%. But restricting the hardware didn't stop Chinese development. Instead, the scarcity acted as an evolutionary pressure. It forced Chinese engineers to find completely new ways to extract top-tier performance from heavily limited resources. Western AI labs have largely competed through brute force, spending hundreds of millions of dollars to string together more chips and more parameters to build larger digital brains. This chart shows the massive financial disparity in how these models are built. OpenAI spent an estimated $100 million training GPT-4. DeepSeek trained its highly capable V3 model for roughly $6 million. DeepSeek relied on a software architecture known as mixture of experts, dividing the neural network into specialized subnetworks. When asked a question, it activates only a tiny fraction of parameters for that query. The rest stays dormant, drastically reducing computing power. By shifting the engineering goal from maximizing raw computing power to maximizing the output of minimal compute, they turned hardware scarcity into an advantage in software design. DeepSeek belongs to a hyper-competitive elite group of domestic Chinese companies, known in the industry as the Six Tigers. Alibaba's QN series recently became the most downloaded AI model family on the planet. Meanwhile, Moonshot AI's Kimi K2 ranks as one of the most powerful open-weight models available. Open-weight meaning the underlying weights and architecture are freely available for developers to download and modify. This chart shows the resulting collapse in global market prices for AI processing. While top Western models like Claude Opus charge around $15 per million input tokens, DeepSeek offers comparable performance for roughly 2.8 cents. Curious question. Why would these companies spend millions developing elite artificial intelligence only to give it away under free open-source licenses? Free distribution drives global adoption. By flooding the market with highly capable, incredibly cheap models, Chinese architecture is rapidly becoming the foundational infrastructure for developers across the global south. It forces Western competitors to either lower their prices or risk losing entirely new markets. Extreme software efficiency is now mapping directly onto the physical realm, centered in the massive manufacturing hubs of cities like Guangzhou. In November 2025, the Chinese electric vehicle maker XPeng unveiled Iron, the second generation of its humanoid robot. During a public demonstration, the machine walked a runway with a gait so fluid that observers questioned whether there was actually a human hidden inside the casing. The robot runs on the industry's first all-solid-state battery deployed in a humanoid frame, utilizing custom AI chips for vision, language, and simultaneous physical action. They are taking the infrastructure built for automotive assembly lines and porting it directly into robotics. The Chinese government has poured over $20 billion in subsidies into the humanoid robot sector. Companies like Xiaomi have already begun deploying these machines directly onto their factory floors. We are watching the simultaneous arrival of efficient AI software and massive robotic manufacturing scale. It creates an entirely new factor of global industrial competition that extends far beyond the computer screen. Despite viral rumors on social media, there is no credible evidence of a hidden, centrally planned superintelligence in China. Instead, these advances stem from highly competitive commercial startups, learning from the public R&D experiments and real-world testing of Western labs. But the capability they've built is real. Recently, an updated DeepSeek model achieved gold medal success at international mathematics competitions. It placed alongside human champions, and it did so entirely offline, without any internet access during the test. The US chip ban created real friction. Because they lack massive stockpiles of advanced NVIDIA hardware, Chinese companies struggle to run global-scale inference. Inference is the computational process of running a trained AI model to generate answers for millions of simultaneous users. Domestic alternatives from companies like Huawei are advancing, but they still produce a fraction of the necessary computing power. The export controls successfully created a bottleneck for mass consumer deployment, but they failed to stop the development of frontier-level intelligence. Western tech leaders are now voicing this reality out loud. As Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei recently pointed out, relying on export controls is not a viable strategy for avoiding the hard work of building superior technology. In just a few years, the Made in China label has moved from cheap consumer goods to some of the most sophisticated digital architecture on the planet. The narrative of a Western runner miles ahead of a trailing competitor is over. It is now a relentless, accelerating sprint between two highly capable powers on a track that has no finish line.